dias, bonjour, good morning. You are all welcome here in Lisbon. It's a great pleasure to meet you in this Congress, Mr. President. And I shall pray with you. But after I shall do a little meditation. You have the meditation. I shall read in Portuguese, but you have the meditation. You must hear. Saúdo cordialmente os organizadores e todos os participantes no Congresso da Uniapac e tenho todo o gosto em rezar convosco no princípio deste dia. Olhar os negócios como uma nobre vocação é fundamental para um cristão. É importante que o tenham escolhido para tema deste congresso. Negócio, do latim negocium, é atividade que consiste na troca, compra e venda de mercadorias, de serviços, de valores, com vista a obter lucros. Definição de dicionário. Sublinhemos as palavras atividade, valores e lucro, dando a este último o sentido pleno de realização humana, própria e alheia, com geral benefício. Para um crente que sabe não estar no princípio nem no fim das coisas e dá essa primazia unicamente a Deus, antes de tudo, em tudo e em todos, a atividade humana é suscitada pela própria operação divina em continuada criação. Para um cristão que entrevê na ação e nas palavras de Jesus Cristo a própria ação divina, o negócio é também vocação, porque vocação significa chamamento e Jesus chama-nos a colaborar com Ele. Recordemos a parábola dos talentos que Jesus contou. Será como um homem que, ao partir para fora, chamou os servos e confiou-lhes os seus bens. Aquele que recebeu 5 talentos, negociou com eles e ganhou outros 5. Passado muito tempo, voltou o senhor daqueles servos e pediu-lhes contas. Aquele que tinha recebido 5 talentos aproximou-se e entregou-lhe outros 5, dizendo: Senhor, confiaste-me 5 talentos, aqui estão outros 5 que eu ganhei. O senhor disse-lhe: muito bem, servo bom e fiel, foste fiel em coisas de pouca monta, muito te confiarei. Entra no gozo do teu senhor. Neste trecho encontramos o essencial do vosso tema, o negócio como vocação. Começa e termina com o chamamento, a vocação, do Senhor. Primeiro para desenvolver os talentos confiados e, finalmente, para compartilhar uma alegria completa. Pelo meio está o negócio, a atividade que duplica o valor. Creio que esta motivação religiosa, ou seja, que liga quem trabalha ao próprio trabalho divino, será muito forte e criativa para um gestor cristão. Juntará o seu trabalho ao trabalho de Jesus Cristo, que coincide com o trabalho de Deus Pai, na força de um único Espírito. O meu Pai continua a realizar obras até agora e eu também continuo. Assim se poderá rezar a oração que Jesus nos ensinou. Oração ao Pai que está nos céus e cujo nome se santifica também na terra, quando nos encontra verdadeiramente do seu lado e a colaborar na sua obra, alargando um reino onde não faltará o pão para todos e onde sempre se possa recomeçar, numa mútua reconciliação que nos reabilite e relance, sem desfalecer nem cair no seu contrário. Rezemos, pois, como o Senhor nos ensinou. Each one in the language. Pai nosso, que estais nos céus, santificado seja o vosso nome, venha a nós o vosso reino, seja feita a vossa vontade, assim na terra como no céu. O pão nosso de cada dia nos dai hoje. Perdoai-nos as nossas ofensas, assim como nós perdoamos a quem nos tem ofendido. E não nos deixeis cair em tentação, mas livrai-nos do mal. Amém. God bless you.
Para iniciar agora os trabalhos, chamamos Roland Medeiros, presidente da Uniapac, para fazer uma breve apresentação do tema do Congresso.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being with us in this very intense day. Thank you, Monsignor Manuel Clemente, for being with us. Thank you, Isabel Gil, Rector of the Catholic University of Portugal, ambassadors of Chile, of Senegal, of Philippines, authorities, friends, ladies and gentlemen. We have, as I said, a very intense day today, and I hope it's going to be as insightful as it was our reflections of the first day yesterday. Science, technology, the free market, and democracy have enabled us to reach unprecedented achievements in knowledge, freedom, life expectancy, and affluence. They are among the greatest achievements of human civilization and are to be defended and cherished. However, technology gives us power but cannot guide us as to how to use that power. The market gives us choices, but leave us uninstructed as to how to make those choices. The liberal democratic state gives us freedom to live as we choose, but refuses, on principle, to guide us as to how to choose. The result is that the 21st century has left us with a maximum of choice and a minimum of meaning. Finding meaning requires an attachment to something larger than the lonely self. To put it in another way, the self is a very poor side to finding meaning. Can our business endeavor be an overriding goal that unifies themes that give meaning not only to our daily activities, but also to those who work for us and with us? All of us have that choice and can find large-scale purpose in our business roles, provided that we strive to concentrate our talents, skills, thoughts, and energies in an enduring manner that leads business truly to serve the common good. All of us have the choice of being something so worth accomplishing that we dedicate ourselves with our hearts, with our qualm and self-interest. All of us can devote ourselves to a cause that in our role we consider a noble purpose. From the definition of purpose, we can infer that purpose is a goal, but it is more stable and far-reaching than lower-level objectives. It is a key part of our own personal search for meaning. But it also has an external quality, a desire to make a difference in the world, to contribute to matters beyond and larger than our own self-interest. Purpose is directed at accomplishments or ends towards which one can make progress. But the essential characteristic of those ends is not their concreteness or attainability, but the sense of direction they provide. Of course, purposes are not always noble. Great evil has been done by people who commit themselves to ignoble purposes. Fortunately, there are many ways to distinguish between noble and ignoble purposes. Perhaps the most telling way is to examine whether both the means and the ends of purpose are moral. In order to qualify a purpose as a noble purpose, not only the why of the deed, but also the how must be guided by a strong moral sense. The means that we employ must be as highly moral as the ends that we pursue. Not only must our goals be directed to the benefit of the world beyond ourselves, but the way in which we accomplish them must be ethical and high-minded. Finding noble purpose means devoting oneself to something worth doing and doing it in an honorable way, a vocation. Saying that you have a vocation means the same as saying that you have a calling. The term vocation comes from the Latin vocatio, to be called. When one thinks of his role of business leader as a calling rather than merely as a job, it transforms the entire experience of it. It becomes possible to take pride in one's most routine accomplishments because one becomes aware of one's contribution to the social good. Experiencing one's work as a calling is in itself a great reward. In terms of the personal satisfaction it leads to, this reward far surpasses any material prizes that success may bring. And it is contagious. Business leaders who feel a sense of calling inspire others to find a deeper meaning in their own work. One of the finer ironies of life is that the dedication to a noble purpose usually leads to greater success, even in a worldly sense, than the narrow pursuit of baser rewards for their own sake. The paradox is that hard and often thankless effort in service of a noble purpose with little thought of personal gain is a surer path to happiness than the eager pursuit of happiness for its own sake. In the next panel, a group of business leaders will testify the insightfulness of this paradox by sharing with us their personal quest and the successes and obstacles they have found in their journey to find meaning in what they are doing. Their vivid examples, I'm sure, will inspire us. They will inform and motivate our personal transformation to be able to transform business into a noble vocation. Many thanks.
Para iniciar o primeiro painel desta manhã, chamamos o professor João Luís César das Neves, que fará a intervenção de enquadramento deste tema.
Senhor Manuel, my friends, I only have 10 minutes, so I have to go to the essential. And the essential is this. Jesus answered, the most important one is this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this. Love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than this. This is it. This is the most important thing in life. This is the reason for life. There's nothing more. This is not optional. This is a commandment. We have to do it. And this is a bit too much, right? Even the devout people think this is a bit too much. This is tremendous. We never hear ourselves saying this. We have to love our God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, and with all our strength. That's it. And this is, well, how do we do it? How is it possible? God is love. There is nothing more. There is only this. And that's what it means. What is the meaning of this? Well, the first thing is love. Not make an effort, not study, not manage, love. The central element is love. The only love is the thing that builds the world. Only love builds our business. There's nothing more. There never was anything more. The problem is that we believe there is something else. There's only this. If I'm a great manager, if I'm a great entrepreneur, if I'm a great builder, if I have lots of responsibility, if I'm very successful but I don't have love, I'm like Madoff. I have only the sound of my voice. There's nothing else. Second, we have to love God. This is the part that lots of Christians today forget. Because they talk about being a good person. They talk about help others, being useful, pray a lot. But they rarely say we have to love God. The first commandment, the source of everything, is to love God. And it is, most importantly, necessary to love God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, and with all our strength. And I think this is a management problem, right? If you're doing like this, how can you do anything else? There's nothing more, right? That's the problem. And it's a management problem. If you're going to do it with all your heart and with all your soul, with all your mind and all your strengths, how can you love your labor? How can you manage your company? How is it possible? Well, the only answer is that you can do that by loving God, because we love God. We love our neighbor because we love God. We love our neighbor because God loves our neighbor. We love our neighbor as God loves our neighbor. God identified himself with the neighbor. Whatever you did to one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it to me. So actually, the only thing we do is to love God, even when we're loving our neighbor or managing our company. The third thing is to love our neighbor. Not love humanity, not love those that suffer, not love the saints, love the neighbor. And this is very hard because the neighbor is a nuisance, right? It's really the one that we don't talk about. It's easier to love humanity, to love those suffering, but not the neighbor. The neighbor is the customer. The neighbor is the supplier. The neighbor is the laborer, is the competitor, is the inspector. Worst of all, the neighbor is the other members of the board. And that's not easy to love. Actually, I think that when Jesus said this, he was thinking of us, because in his time, they were in little villages. Everybody were neighbors. So if he had said, love the others, he wouldn't be saying love the neighbors. He was thinking of a time in which we could love at a distance. We could love by television. We could love by phone, by email. And he said, no, it's not that I want to love. I want you to love the neighbor, the nuisance you have next door, the guy that is always there, the lady which is bothering you. That's the one you have to love. And believe me, you can only love that because you love God. There is no way you're going to love those persons unless you think that God is loving them and you're loving them like God is loving them. We cannot forget the old remote persons. We have to love the third world because, well, television makes them our neighbors. But that's not our priority. Priority is the ones that we have around us, those that are harder to love. And how do we do it? What does it mean to love the Holy Trinity with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, and with all our strength? How do we do it? The topic I was given is a personal transformation to assume business as a vocation. Well, how I do it this? Is there any special dimension in business? What is specific of the life in business? Well, managers and companies are really convinced that they are special, that they are most important. It's very hard to manage companies. So sometimes it seems that we need something special for us. I know lots of people that are trying to find new commandments for managers. Not the old commandments are for everybody. Well, commandments for managers are more important because this is more crucial. Well, I'll probably say that the most shocking thing we have to say here is we are just like everything else. It's just like the others. It's all the same. They are not more important. They're not more difficult. They're just like everything else. The only commandment we have is this one. If we do this, that's enough. All we have to do in our business is to love God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind, and with all our strength. But how can I do it? Me, this vermin I am, this little pebble, how can I love like that? It's impossible. Well, this is not something that we can do. This is something that we can ask. This is something we have to ask every day. Ask Our Lady to help us do it. Ask God to help us love like He wants us to love. This is the calling, to ask every day to do this. This is nothing that I'm ever going to be able to do, but this is something that I have to aspire every day. This means that my office is the Calvary, where Jesus every day dies. My desk is the Holy Sepulchre, where Jesus every day resurrects. This is the thing that happens in my office. And when that happens there, I have made my calling. I have answered to the vocation. This is not my opinion. This was said by Pope John Paul II, Saint John Paul II, in one of the most important texts about the personal transformation to assume business as a calling, the encyclical Laborem Exercitum of 1981. He said, by enduring the toil of work in union with Christ crucified for us, man in a way collaborates with the Son of God for the redemption of humanity. He shows himself a true disciple of Christ by carrying the cross in his turn every day in the activity that he is called upon to perform. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado, Sr. Professor João Luís das Neves. Para o nosso primeiro testemunho neste painel, chamamos ao palco Michel Arabovet.
Good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. When I was 19, I had a dream. I wanted to build a successful company. And I thought it would be easy because I was passionate about programming. But then, and you know, it's 27 years ago, I couldn't understand what successful mean. For that time, to be successful meant to have a lot of money. So, on the first place, in the definition, what a successful company means was our, let's say, account or profit position, growth, the size, and the earnings we have. But then, and all you know, who are sitting here knows perfectly what I'm going to tell, it's not true. To be successful doesn't mean that you have a lot of money. That means that you are useful for the human progress. So we had to rethink our goal and to rebuild our culture to be really useful. And as Mr. President, as Rolando said in the opening speech, we are from technology field. So it's getting to be more and more difficult because the technology gives us the power. But today I'm here to be very personal. So because they gave me 8 minutes, I prepared the 8 areas where entrepreneurship and business changed me. So I got the list here. I'm prepared. So the first one is, okay, this is an unsorted list. To act outside of my comfort zone. So that means I'm presenting here. And as Pope Francis said early this year, the Holy Spirit sends us outside of our systems and structures. So again, this is going to be tough to use our creativity, which is our innovation, that are sending us outside of our systems to use it the proper way. The second, my personal integrity and high responsibility. Because if I want or I don't, I'm probably the most visible person in my company. So I'm setting ethical principles. If I like it or I don't, I have to be very responsible because the culture of the company is not what we write up on the wall, some ethical codex, let's call it, but the culture of the company is how we decide. So as a leader, I need to understand that my people see how am I designing in a crucial decisions. The third, the entrepreneurship gave me the opportunity to help others to grow. So I'm going to inspiring people, to mentoring, and so on and so on. But personally, I also have to grow. So I also have to learn something new every day because, again, the people see me. So if I'm just telling, hey, go and grow, and I'm sitting on my chair and do nothing in my grow, nothing will happen. The fourth, opportunity to bring peace into relationships. Because I'm on the top of the company, I can be the peacemaker between the colleagues, but also between the institutions and other structures, because I know personally the leaders of the other companies and institutions, so I can use my personal connections to bring peace into relationships also there. The fifth, let's call it humble. And it was not easy for me because I was too young and I grow very, very fast on the top to stay humble. And why is that important? Because several things. The first, if I fail on the ground, then I need to wake up again and see it as an opportunity to grow. Next one is patience. 27 years of doing my job, I'm very patient. And it's systematic work toward our goal, not to give up. The seventh, the courage and the taking risk. Because the God gave us freedom. But what does it mean, freedom? The freedom means to be ready for change. and it's not easy again, and not to fear. And last but not least, how to do a critical decisions. So it's how I consider different views from different angles, evaluating the common good inside the core of the decision I will make. And usually it's to pick the tougher way, not the easier one. So today, when I was thinking about all these points, I realized that it will not be helpful if I stop dreaming. In agenda, I got some questions to answer here in this stage. And the last question were, what would Christ do differently if he were in my place? Okay, and I was thinking about this way. He would be dreaming much, much bigger about how to build his kingdom on this earth than me. But I believe that with his help, we can too. Thank you.
Chamamos ao palco MSN do Senegal.
Bonjour à l'illustre Assemblée, bonjour aux autorités religieuses, bonjour aux autorités administratives. Je remercie mon ambassadeur, son Excellence Cheikh Tidiane Ndoye, qui s'est déplacé pour venir assister à ce congrès. Je suis du Sénégal. Je vais faire un thème philosophique, simplement dire ce que je vis, et je vous prie, s'il vous plaît, de lancer le film. Merci.
Every time Mr. MSN travels down this road, his driver knows he must stop here. MSN absolutely insists on performing his ritual recollection in front of this Calvary, the statue of Jesus Christ located at the very entrance of Ngoe, his native village. Ngoe is a traditional Serer village nestled in the heart of the Baol region, nearby the city of Diourbel in central Senegal, about 150 kilometers from Dakar. Here, modernity and tradition meet, affecting even in urbanization, where traditional Serer architecture is still ubiquitous. In the village of Ngoe, Muslims and Catholics live in perfect harmony. The church was established in this community almost 125 years ago. Today, the son of the land has come to see firsthand the progress of the construction of the Case des Tout-Petits he is building for the village. Actually, the project is particularly dear to his heart. The Case des Tout-Petits of Ngoe is a gift from MSN, a son of the village who was born in 1951 in this very compound. The project has been fully sponsored with the proceeds generated by the Corporate Social Responsibility Scheme of MSN's various companies. For a total cost of 60 million CFA franc, amounting to 120,000 US dollars, the building, equipped with vital amenities, is a high-end facility which does honor to the sponsor and will delight the inhabitants of Ngoe, and especially the children.
Je suis satisfait. C'est un projet qui me tient parfois plus à cœur.
I am very happy with this project. When I see the completion, I am very delighted. Sometimes this project is dearer to my heart than my own project. Just when I think about the future outcomes of this school, this is what my religion, especially Jesus Christ, instructed me to do.
Me dit de faire.
In this village, MSN's social works are as diverse as those developed in Dakar. The businessman is already very active on other fronts, even within the village parish, where he was an anonymous donor a few years ago.
Vu aussi les actions.
When I look at the means he's been blessed with, considering everything he's done for the community, not only here but everywhere else, from the start I thought he could be very helpful to us other Catholic. Not far from Ngoe, a maternity hospital was rebuilt and fully equipped with the help of the Rotary Club Senegal when he was president of the organization a few years ago. Here too, nearly 60 million CFA francs, amounting to 120,000 US dollars, have been invested in improving women's delivery conditions. Be it in the sectors of education, health, church or mosque, or simple donations, Mr. Sen has been a generous donor and has put his companies to the service of the population without any media hype. He's been doing a lot behind the scenes. It is not only this mosque, there is another mosque in the other street over there. When someone is ill, he pays the prescription without displaying it. He sometimes shows up at the hospital to commiserate with the patient. When someone passes away, or when there is a wedding, he is always present. Mr. Sen, who leads 7 successful companies, remains an unsung hero, unknown to many of his compatriots. Born into a farmer family, Mr. Sen has grown from rags to riches thanks to hard work, and despite his wealth, he remains down to earth and deeply attached to Christian ethics.
La responsabilité sociétale de l'entreprise.
Corporate social responsibility goes beyond actions one takes. The business manager must be the embodiment of corporate social responsibility. A leader must be a role model, and every single day I am striving to live up to these principles. I work with my children, and therefore I must behave as a father. No wonder his name does not sound familiar. One thing is for sure, you have already met him somewhere, stayed at his place without knowing it. He may have carried you without you knowing it, or quite simply, you have seen one of his brands somewhere in Dakar without you knowing it. If you have seen Hearst Senegal, Hotel Fleur de Lis, Via Senegal, Dakar Limousine, then you have met MSN. At 67 years of age, MSN, also known as Sodam, his Serer nickname, is the Vice President of the CNP, the National Employers Council, Senegal's main employers organization, together with the CNES. He is also Vice President and member of the Senegalese Investors Club. Born into a devout Catholic family, Mr. Sen's daily life and business management is naturally influenced by Christian education, morals and ethics. In fact, he is one of the spearheads of the Association of Catholic Business Leaders of Senegal. As one of his acquaintances summarized, the good thing with Aimé is that he is discreet and attached to his culture and Catholic faith.
Le président MSN est quelqu'un avec une éthique.
Chairman MSN is someone who lives by his ethics, someone who lives by core values such as leadership, friendship, and comradeship. He never stops building. He is a true builder.
Il n'arrête pas de bâtir. Je dirais que je pense que si ce n'avait pas été le président MSN,
Without German MSN, probably Radio Espérance would remain a wishful thought in the community. He supported the project, and that's why he's the current chairman of the Board of Trustees.
Président du conseil d'administration.
Devout Catholic, MSN has been made Knight of the Order of Malta, a prestigious structure of the Catholic Church. MSN owes his success in business to his drive for entrepreneurship, workaholism and management skills, but also to the various prayers and requests addressed to the Holy Mary. I strongly believed in Holy Mary. Anytime I needed something, I would ask Holy Mary, Mother Mary, I need this, Mother Mary, I need that, and believe me, Mother Mary, when you give me what I want, I will make a promise. Well, Mother Mary doesn't need vows for herself. I thought that when I pledged to help people, to accomplish something, Mother Mary would be very happy with me. And all my life has been punctuated with that. At the age of 5 or 6, MSN left his native village to settle down in Dakar. He cherishes the memories of those days. The hairstyle he wore at that time was made of a few tufts of hair isolated on a shaved head, a typically Serer haircut that has almost disappeared nowadays. Several years after leaving his village, M.A. has achieved his dream of becoming a rich man, sharing his wealth with his compatriots. While the journey to success has been winding and full of ups and downs, his unshakable faith was his only weapon. At over 65 years of age, he is still very young. It is on the golf courses that he keeps in shape every Saturday, just to follow his passion and escape for a weekend from the daily management of his companies and the stress of this hectic business life. Physically, he is hale and hearty, with a smiling face and eyes always illuminated by faith. As for business, his companies continue to grow. MSN has several projects in the pipeline for Diamniadio, the future city of Senegal, where huge real estate projects are underway. In the meantime, his Fleur de Lys Hotel Resort will host a third establishment, a 4-star hotel in the making, in the residential area of Point-E in Dakar. One more star for MSN, who paradoxically refuses to be taken for a star. Better off people must behave accordingly because they live free from want. They must praise the Lord, they must be grateful to the Lord, and honor the Lord every day for all the blessings. They do not suffer, they are free from hunger and want. And when one has that, one must be constantly thankful to the Lord.
Je vous remercie. Voilà tout simplement ma vie de chrétien, d'homme d'affaires. Merci beaucoup.
Do Senegal, vamos até a Indonésia para ouvir o testemunho de Dishman.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Like our earlier speaker, I came from a home of extreme diversity called Indonesia. Christians make only a small minority, or perhaps 8% of our total population. But I should say that we are trying our best to live ecumenically. Ecumenic means for us not just Protestants and Catholics living together, but Islam, Christians, Hindu, Buddhists living together. And my daily responsibility is to lead a university, Prastia Mulia University. I grew up with this university from a very small institution into now an institution of 6,000 students. Not big for Europe, but for us, Indonesia is quite big. And through this profession, I was somehow drawn to business. I sit in two boards. One of it is mining company. And this mining company, I think, reflects where Indonesia is today, struggling to grow on the basis of factor. We call it in economics factor-driven growth. And of course, that's only a transition. Somewhere I read that natural resources actually are meant only to be schooling fee for us to climb up the ladder of the human progress. So let me start with a video of 3 minutes. After that, we'll continue with a few more comments, and I hope with this video and my later comments, challenge facing a country like Indonesia, who is really struggling to get out of the so-called middle income trap, will be clearly shared among us. Please, the video.
With 7.3 billion inhabitants aspiring for a better life, the world's need for energy grows continuously. Despite a gradual shift to renewable energy, coal will still be needed during the energy transition. Indonesia relies heavily on coal to fuel electricity generation and to earn foreign exchange. Operating in Indonesia, ITM manages a number of coal mines in areas which were already deforested prior to mining. Permit to mine is conditional on mine closure, that includes forest restoration in the area. The company complies with the regulations on and observes the norms of inclusive and sustainable development throughout the entire value chain, the more so with the issuance of the SDG 2030. ITM strives to carry its mining operations at the most sustainable way across all stages, which each one is planned as much as possible, to avoid causing external costs to the environment, including to the neighboring communities, in everything that it does. Even the mine closure program is carefully developed since the mine planning stages, prior to the coal-getting operation begins. While alongside its course of mine operations, ITM continuously implements programs that create values for the future of its neighboring communities. Such example programs on the fields are maternal and infant health and nutrition, clean water system, integrated farming and fishery, economic development that boosts existing local potentials, adult literacy, refresher courses for teachers and so on. For the environment, in the effort of going beyond only complying on its obligations, the company innovatively carries out certain initiatives to restore its mining areas to the best possible conditions. In managing acidic water, swampy forest is built between the void and the free environment. Water from void is flowed through the swampy forest and discharged to free environment with a pH level above a required minimum. Under its biodiversity program, ITM returns disturbed areas to condition prescribed in mining permit. Local key plants, like Uline tree, are studied, collected, and nurtured in ex situ and in situ nurseries to be inserted in restored post-mining forests, with the diversity animal species are expected to return, to set forth a complex plant-animal interaction. This program too is part of a pre-commitment, planned together with the government and academics, and monitored closely. Also in the spirit of conservation, the company protects the habitats of rare species that are endemic to the areas, such as the Galam tree forest, and unique endangered plant species such as the black orchid, or Collagen pangerata. In conclusion, ITM continuously strives for the most harmonious balance in its mining practices. ITM takes what it is allowed to take. In return, the company carries out its regulatory obligations and ethical responsibilities conscientiously.
Thank you. I sit as chairman of the board of this company, and my daily questions include, how are we going to give in balance with what we are taking? I think that's the story of love. Love your neighbor, giving in balance with what we are taking. But of course, this type of business is only a transition. Like the rest of the world, Indonesia also aspires to climb up the development ladder to an economy which is more or less based on knowledge rather than factors. And to this, of course, we require a completely different inputs into the economy. And facing this transition is, I think, a Herculean task for Indonesia. There are many things needed to allow an economy to move up this ladder. But in my view, as someone who served education for such a long time, in my view, one of the key ingredients is human capital. And within human capital, of course, included are, number one, literacy. I always observe with deep regret that we Indonesians have not made it higher in the literacy ladder, as you can see from OECD, PISA survey every year. Also in terms of skills, we still rank quite low in the international comparison. The same applies to entrepreneurship. Perhaps the weakest point of our development right now is the deficit in entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship in the sense of ability to grow business successfully, and in this case, of course, businesses that are science and technology driven rather than just factor driven. This is a Herculean challenge, as I said. And to a simple academicians like me, I understand myself as a catalyst in the transmission of human capital through learning by enterprising in cooperation and competition with intelligent learning machines. We live there now. Not only human, but also we cooperate and compete with learning machines. I understand myself as an agent in a complex network of collaboration, perhaps the pinnacle of evolution, cooperation rather than just competition. And in this, I ceaselessly try in hope and grateful for even the most meager harvest, because I think more is undeserved. I thank you for your attention, and I hope that with this I enrich our meeting with some perspectives on how a country like Indonesia is trying to struggle to move up the development ladder. Thank you very much.
E da Indonésia, passamos para as Filipinas com o testemunho do Tito Serafica.
Good morning. I'm from the neighbor of Indonesia. I come from the Philippines, and I believe we have the biggest delegation for this Congress. And we are very happy to share with you what we have in the Philippines through our organization called the Brotherhood of Christian Businessmen and Professionals. I'd like to start my testimony with a quote from a former CNN anchorwoman. Her name is Soledad O'Brien. And she said, "Transforming fear to freedom, how great is that? How great is that?" Since we are mostly practicing and devoted Christians today, please allow me to ask you, if you were invited to take over the helm of a publicly listed company that is almost bankrupt and is involved in online casino, would you accept it? Would you accept it? Friends in Christ, this was my defining question in 2010 when I accepted the chairmanship of Premier Horizon Alliance Corporation, of which I am currently also the president and CEO. Incidentally, in 2010 as well, my wife and I, Josie, were likewise entering our 10th year in the BCBP, the Brotherhood of Christian Businessmen and Professionals. And today, please allow me to share my evolving Christian stewardship story. Before 2010, I was a very contented investment banker. With BCBP's strong emphasis on Christian giving, me and my wife, Josie, are dutiful stewards who regularly paid our tithes and were actively sharing our time and talent in the BCBP. Little did I know that these habits, while they were good, were not exactly exemplary. In fact, they were not enough. Looking back at my faithful acceptance of the chairmanship of Premier Horizon, I believe our God wanted to test my commitment to trust, to obey, and serve Him completely. He wanted me to focus on Him, the giver, and not just on His gifts. He wanted me to grow closer to Him, not by trying harder, but surrendering more. Specifically, it was very clear that leading an online casino business for a Christian is a real dilemma. You agree, right? You know, on one hand, you have these Christian beliefs. On the other hand, you have this responsibility to the shareholders of a publicly listed company. So, the burning question is there really a gray area between practical spirituality and one's business calling? This question came to a head when I sought advice from my spiritual advisor, when we did our pilgrimage in Medjugorje in 2013. He said, and he said it very clearly, Tito, you have two options. First, quit your position, or stay and sell the business. There is no gray area, Tito, was his categorical admonition. So, friends, left with no option, I intensified my efforts to sell the gaming business, but sadly, there were no takers then. With a heavy heart and much misgivings, my team did the unthinkable and decided to grow the gaming business even further. Yes, we grew it even further. Then it happened. In the last part of 2014, not only were we able to sell the gaming business, we did so at a price beyond our expectations. Indeed, that was one magnificent breakthrough where we have to admit that it was all about God's grace, affirming what Corinthians 12, verse 9 has to say, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. With enough pivot funds, we decided to reinvent ourselves in 2015 from an entertainment gaming company into a countryside business enabler. We thought that given our new and noble business aspirations, we will be shielded from misfortunes. No, sir, we were dead wrong. In only a matter of 1 year, not only did we make acquisition blunders, we also had to register operating losses and suffer liquidity problems. Bruising from this series of setbacks, I was led to a disturbing yet profound reflection that eventually became our business motto. It says, we do not overcome challenges by making the problem smaller. We do it by becoming bigger. With this mindset and starting in 2016, we decided to undertake a landmark tourism township project of around 500 hectares. As a follow-through for 2017, we started to develop another flagship project in the field of infrastructure and renewable energy with the lofty ambition of achieving triple bottom line results. It became apparent to me that I was being led by God to develop these big business opportunities into something like a sacred vocation. I also realized that becoming bigger means taking that leap of faith, specifically when things do not make logical or business sense. Just like the story of Job in the Bible, I can hear our God telling me to hold on, to just patiently show up and not give up, to always seek and trust Him for guidance and direction. As after all, He is the owner of all of these riches, and I am just a mere steward. He wanted me to assume full responsibility beyond my formal position and to constantly practice personal sacrifices. He was telling me to just surrender and allow Him to transform my gray areas into white. Friends, may I affirm that our God is a great and faithful provider. As He feels my pain, He likewise mightily weaves His miracles. To date, we are on the verge of doing a public listing of our infra subsidiary. As importantly, we are in discussions with a global resort developer for our tourism project. And we are also in talks with some institutions who will infuse much needed funds. Given this rays of hope amidst our continuing struggles, I have realized that God's very different standard operating procedure can only be discerned through steadfast faith and relentless actions. I have discovered that to be a worthy steward, wholeness and integration is essential in practicing business as a noble vocation. This discovery makes me joyfully affirm I am not really stressed. I am very, very stretched. Yes, in this divine partnership, our Lord also made sure that I intensify my involvement in my beloved community, the BCBP, as its chairman, and also be the Philippine representative of Uberis Capital, a regional fund engaged in social impact investing in Asia. Friends, in closing, I stand before you to humbly proclaim that I am just a faithful steward of God. I wholly testify that God's sufficiency is in surrender. As I yield the driver's seat, our God awesomely becomes the doer, the doing, and the deed. Echoing the comforting message of Psalm 91:14, and I quote, I will set you on high because you have known my name. Good morning and thank you.
E para terminar esta ronda de testemunhos, chamamos a Amina Laraki para o seu testemunho.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous et merci beaucoup aux organisateurs de l'Uniapac de m'avoir invité pour apporter un témoignage d'une partie du monde qui s'appelle le Maroc. Donc je suis marocaine et en fait mon parcours a commencé on va dire en 92 quand j'ai eu un accident de bicyclette alors que j'étais en vacances avec mon mari au Costa Rica. Je suis tombée d'un pont et donc j'ai reçu une grosse pierre au milieu du dos et j'ai su que, irrémédiablement, j'avais perdu l'usage de mes jambes et j'ai su aussi que j'avais perdu ma sensibilité et que ma vie allait changer. Et donc, du coup, au départ, mon objectif, c'était retrouver ma mobilité parce qu'on a tous au fond du cœur cet espoir qu'un jour, on va remarcher. Donc, j'ai eu la chance d'être allée aux États-Unis puis après en France, dans des centres de rééducation, où j'ai appris à réapprivoiser un corps que je ne connaissais plus et où j'ai appris aussi à me battre un peu contre les stéréotypes du style une personne handicapée, ça ne se marie pas, ça n'a pas d'enfant, ça ne travaille pas, c'est inutile pour la société. En fait, c'est une charge, en gros. Donc, j'ai été loin de ma famille pendant 6 mois, mais ça m'a permis de me reconstruire aussi quelque part. Et à mon retour au Maroc, j'ai entendu parler d'une association qui s'appelait l'Amicale marocaine des handicapés, qui était une association qui était nouvellement créée et qui avait pour but d'abord de porter sur le terrain la problématique du handicap et aussi de collecter des fonds pour des projets qui visent à inclure la personne handicapée dans la société. Moi, à l'époque, j'avais une agence de communication et puis après cet accident, il m'est apparu très vite que je devais mettre du sens dans mes actions. Et du coup, comme j'avais un carnet d'adresses bien fourni et que j'étais dans la communication, j'ai commencé comme ça. Et très vite, j'ai pris de plus en plus de responsabilités parce que justement, ça avait du sens. Et du coup, être en fauteuil roulant m'a permis de mieux comprendre quels étaient les obstacles auxquels étaient confrontées les personnes handicapées, parce que du coup, moi j'avais 32 ans, j'étais mariée, j'avais 2 enfants, j'avais ma vie professionnelle réussie à la banque, etc. Et du coup, je me retrouve en fauteuil dans un univers un petit peu hostile, on va dire. Et là, je me suis engagée pleinement aux côtés de cette association dont je suis devenue la présidente. Et si vous permettez, je n'ai pas fait de film, Mais si vous pouviez lancer quelques images qui vont à peu près illustrer mes propos. J'ai fait un petit diaporama d'images. Donc, je suis la présidente de ce groupement associatif d'entrepreneuriat social qui s'appelle l'Amicale marocaine des handicapés et qui intervient aujourd'hui dans plusieurs domaines que sont l'autonomie, la santé, l'éducation et la formation. Alors, nous avons créé le premier centre de rééducation au Maroc qui s'appelle le Centre hospitalier Nord, qui aujourd'hui emploie 250 personnes et qui accueille près de 1200 patients par an. Nous avons 100 lits d'hospitalisation, mais nous avons construit également un autre centre de rééducation dans un quartier populaire à Casablanca que nous ne gérons plus directement. Et nous sommes en train de construire un autre centre à Khoribga, qui est à quelques kilomètres de Casablanca. L'idée pour nous est de dupliquer un modèle qui finalement marche bien, parce qu'au départ, on était une association dite caritative, et très vite, on a évolué vers ce qu'on appelle aujourd'hui l'entrepreneuriat social, sans le savoir en fait, parce qu'on s'est rendu compte que le bénévolat, surtout dans un domaine comme la santé, ne pouvait pas nous mener très loin et qu'il fallait qu'on se professionnalise. On se rendait compte aussi que l'État ne pouvait pas, assurer tous les besoins des personnes handicapées au Maroc et qu'il fallait qu'on apporte notre contribution. Et en réalité, nous avons créé le premier centre de rééducation. Et par là, on a pris également en charge une école et qui nous permet aujourd'hui d'inclure des enfants handicapés au sein d'enfants dits valides. C'est-à-dire qu'on est en train de créer plusieurs ponts. De la personne handicapée, aujourd'hui, on va dire qu'on s'occupe un peu plus des populations à caractère vulnérable, parce qu'on se rend compte que le handicap, il n'est pas simplement physique ou mental, mais le handicap peut aussi être lié à la précarité. Et les enfants sont une population vulnérable, les personnes âgées sont une population vulnérable, les personnes handicapées, évidemment, le sont encore plus, puisqu'elles sont encore marginalisées dans notre société. Et donc, du coup, aujourd'hui, ce qu'on essaye de faire, c'est de créer des ponts entre ces différentes institutions et développer et dupliquer notre modèle parce que c'est un modèle qui fonctionne. Nous sommes complètement indépendants financièrement, c'est-à-dire que notre modèle repose sur la solidarité entre les catégories socio-professionnelles. En gros, les plus riches payent pour les plus pauvres. On a un non payant pour 5 payants. Et ça marche très très bien. Donc du coup, on est indépendant financièrement et on prouve à l'État qu'on n'a pas besoin d'eux, ni de leur soutien, ni de leur aide. Et par ailleurs, l'autre chose, c'est que nous voulons développer beaucoup d'autres projets, notamment des projets panafricains, améliorer l'insertion professionnelle des personnes handicapées dans notre pays, et puis construire un centre de gériatrie parce qu'on se rend compte que le sujet des personnes âgées va être aussi un sujet important chez nous et qu'il va falloir l'adresser très très rapidement. Donc nous avons, je pense, mis en place une structure de professionnels qui est hyper compétente et qui nous accompagne aujourd'hui. Et on a 25 000 adhérents, ce qui est énorme, ce qui fait de nous aujourd'hui la plus grosse ONG, une des plus grosses ONG au Maroc. Alors, pourquoi est-ce que l'entrepreneuriat social, et je pense, amène de pouvoir transformer l'économie, et pourquoi est-ce que je pense qu'il faut mettre les logiques économiques au service de l'intérêt général? C'est parce que, en temps de croissance, les termes du débat étaient clairs. On avait d'une part les ONG, les associations caritatives, les entrepreneurs sociaux qui trouvaient souvent des solutions locales et adaptées à des problèmes pressants. Et de l'autre côté, on avait l'État qui aidait ces associations jusqu'à un certain point. Okay, et en ce qui concerne plus particulièrement l'économie, en fait, les sociétés, la société, l'entreprise, elle avait pour fonction de créer de la richesse et l'État avait pour fonction de redistribuer cette richesse pour garantir la pérennité du pacte social. Or, la crise est passée par là. Et aujourd'hui, les associations, elles se battent et les États n'ont plus les moyens d'aider comme ils le faisaient avant. Donc, il faut trouver de nouvelles solutions. Et c'est un dialogue qui est nécessaire aujourd'hui entre la société civile, l'entrepreneuriat social et l'État, parce qu'il faut établir une sorte de dialogue pour pouvoir arriver à des solutions qui sont pérennes. Donc, c'est quoi une entreprise sociale exactement? Une entreprise sociale est un entrepreneur social, celui qui place l'impact environnemental ou social à un niveau égal ou supérieur à sa performance économique. Elle a donc, l'entrepreneur social ou l'entreprise sociale a un caractère hybride. Parce que si l'entrepreneur identifie un besoin non satisfait, il doit en même temps intégrer les logiques d'ajustement aux conditions du marché. Et en même temps, l'entrepreneur social est un trait d'union entre la société civile, l'État et les entreprises. Et du coup, on peut co-construire quelque chose ensemble. Et ça, c'est intéressant, je pense. Et enfin, l'entreprise sociale a un rôle de plateforme grâce à sa démarche d'innovation sociale, parce que contrairement à l'innovation technologique qui est fermée, l'innovation sociale est en open source, elle est complètement ouverte, parce que nous, ce qu'on cherche aujourd'hui, c'est à dupliquer et à ce que les autres s'approprient notre modèle pour pouvoir grandir et répondre à des besoins pressants et auxquels, encore une fois, comme je disais, l'État ne peut pas satisfaire. Donc, évidemment, on a rencontré beaucoup de difficultés. Alors, on a l'arsenal législatif et réglementaire qui n'est pas adapté, on manque de moyens, etc. Mais moi, je dirais, en tout cas pour le domaine du handicap, ce que je ressens profondément, le plus gros problème, c'est que c'est le regard qu'on porte sur le handicap. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, le handicap est partout. Il ne souffre d'aucune discrimination, que ce soit de genre ou de localisation ou de sexe, de nationalité, etc. Et il intervient dans tous les domaines, c'est transverse. Il touche aussi bien l'éducation que la formation, que la vie sociale, que la vie affective, que le sport, ça touche tous les domaines. Et donc, du coup, c'est un élément qui est présent dans notre vie quotidienne, l'handicap. Mais dans un monde qui apparaît comme le plus souvent hostile, en tout cas c'est comme ça qu'on le ressent, nous en étant handicapés, la personne handicapée, elle se referme et elle s'isole. Alors à qui la faute? Parce qu'il y a une peur des deux côtés, il y a une crainte des deux côtés. Mais en fait, il faut arriver à se connecter les uns aux autres. Et donc, pour permettre ce vivre ensemble, il faut influencer l'environnement dans lequel la personne handicapée va être amenée à évoluer, et il faut mettre en place, je crois, des liens sociaux équitables, durables et renouvelables entre citoyens. Parce que l'art du vivre ensemble consiste à organiser les relations humaines, à mélanger les talents et à accepter la diversité. Et c'est ça la richesse. Donc il faut arrêter de penser on va prendre en charge, mais il faut plutôt penser prendre en compte. Et donc, moi je suis musulmane, mais je me suis quand même intéressée à ce que le Christ a dit à propos des personnes handicapées. Et si vous permettez, je vais le lire parce que je ne me rappelle pas par cœur, mais d'après mes recherches, le Christ appelle à aimer et à prendre soin des faibles, dont les personnes en situation de handicap. Dans le chapitre 14, verset 12, Jésus dit « Si tu donnes un festin, invite des pauvres, des estropiés, des boiteux, des aveugles, et tu seras heureux parce qu'ils n'ont rien à te rendre. Cela te sera rendu à la résurrection des justes. » Dans ce passage, le Christ souligne qu'il faut manifester de la bonté aux faibles, être au service des nécessiteux. Il appelle aussi à une humanité profonde, en mettant en question notre compréhension de ce qui fait qu'une vie soit riche de sens. Et je pense qu'une humanité profonde ne se réalisera que si nous devenons plus humains ensemble, en regardant l'autre comme important, quelles que soient ses capacités, quelles que soient ses faiblesses, et vive la diversité. Merci. Merci beaucoup.
Obrigado por todos os testemunhos. Terminamos aqui o primeiro painel desta sessão. E só pedia para os speakers desta sessão poderem subir ao palco para tirar uma fotografia, e convido todos a irem até ao coffee break. Obrigado.
olá. Olá, olá. Olá, Tiago. Olá, olá. Boa tarde, bom dia, boa noite. Está cá. Já ouvi, está-se bem.
E a pedir que se sentassem para começarmos o segundo painel. Será que as pessoas ouviram? Vamos então começar a segunda sessão desta nossa manhã. Chamava ao palco o Rui Diniz, que vai ser o moderador deste debate.
Good try. So, good morning everyone. It's with great pleasure and a great honor that I'm here to introduce the second panel of today's session, Promoting Inclusiveness in Business. And this is a major dimension of business as a noble vocation. Because when we think about it, business is made for people. It's not people that are made for business. We are at the service of people. And when we want to be at the service of people, we cannot be at the service of only some people. We need to be at the service of all people. We need to have the objective of bringing as many people as possible into the workforce. Because to have a job, to work, is a critical dimension of any human being. And therefore, inclusiveness is really one of the major objectives of us as business leaders. In order to do that, we need to guarantee that we are open and to foster that inclusiveness. Not only that we go against preconceived ideas, that we only privilege the smartest, the most talented, the ones that can add more value. Because at the end, that does not hold true. What we can see in many experiences, as you will see during the panel, is that everyone can add value. Anyone can bring important benefits for our companies and for our community. And so, it's not only important to guarantee that our businesses are inclusive for the sake of every single person, but also because it makes a lot of sense for our business companies, because it makes a lot of sense for our community. Companies that are more inclusive, universities that are more inclusive, communities that are more inclusive, at the end of the day, are better companies, better universities, and better communities. It's for the benefit of us all that we should foster more inclusiveness wherever we work, wherever we live. What we will see during this panel is different angles on how to promote this inclusiveness, different examples on how inclusiveness was achieved and the benefits that we could get from such inclusiveness. We will start with a very inspiring example that Randy Lewis from the US former Senior Vice President of Walgreens, brings to us. Randy has a great story and one that truly can inspire us all to be open, to be more inclusive, and to guarantee that we are open to everyone without any prejudice or preconceived ideas. Randy, please.
Good morning. Wouldn't it be fair to say that every child is a lesson? Sometimes by what they do, sometimes by what they say. Our son, Austin, has autism. He didn't speak until he was 10 years old. And if you ever get a chance to meet him, you will think he's trying to make up for lost time. He drives, he has his own car, and he drives me occasionally to the airport. I pay him $20. He will get up early, bring my bag downstairs, go through the traffic, and we pull up to the terminal. And every time, the experience is the same. I will turn to him and say, Austin, you got me here on time, and you got me here safely. Thank you, and I love you. And Austin will turn and say, $20. A typical child. But make no mistake, he has challenges. He reads at the primary school level. He has no peer friends. I have never played a game with my own son, not even a game of catch. And if he's like most people like him, he would never be offered a job. Something that we parents start thinking about the instant we get that bad news, because we know what's waiting. Now, if a driver's license is like graduating from the best college, a job would be like a Nobel Prize. Because a job can mean security, relationships, can change a complete life. And Austin's lesson to me, I see past the disability to see the person, and I see a person who continually surprised me, a person who I always underestimated. And I got to thinking about all the other employees we have in the company. How many of those lay in their bed at night looking at the ceiling, wondering what will happen next? If we couldn't do something about this as a company, which company could? And if I couldn't do something about it in my role as head of supply chain, who would? So we began contracting with companies who would bring in people with disabilities to do our custodial work in our distribution centers, and everybody said it was great. We even gave them name badges like ours so everybody would feel like they're part of the team, but they weren't. And on a visit to our Dallas center, this woman comes up to me who I didn't know and tells me how great the group is and shows me a picture. And she's in it, and she says, "Oh, but I'm not one of them." They weren't our employees, they weren't doing mainstream work, and they weren't us. So we said, let's hire some people from the group who we think will be successful and see how they do. And one of the persons we hired was a young man named Chuck. Chuck has autism. He would come to work every day. We put him on a production line. He came to work, did his job, didn't complain. But he was a little bit strange. Every time a purple cardboard box would pass by him, he would stop and yell and start dancing. Maybe like this, sometimes. Something we'd never seen. Is management got together, is this something that's appropriate? We had to decide which is more important, performance or style. And which do we really prefer, dancing or complaining? Let's go with the dancing. So it came time to build a new center. We were going to build it in South Carolina. It's going to be the most advanced center, and we thought we could tweak it to enable a large number of people with disabilities to perform as well or better than anyone else in the world. And we didn't have to remind ourselves that we're a business, not a charity. We make paper-thin margins, and we have demanding shareholders. So if we were going to do this, people with disabilities were going to have to do the same job, earn the same pay, be held to the same performance standards. And we set a high goal. 1/3 of the entire workforce would be people with disabilities, something that has never been done in the world, anywhere, or ever before. We said, I didn't tell you if we were successful yet. Thank you. But it was a goal that would challenge us, but more importantly, inspire us. Now, when we presented our plans to the board of directors, they asked one question: what if it doesn't work? We said, we'll treat it like any other problem. We'll give it our best, and we'll adjust. And they said, okay. So it was not a problem of either or. We could do both. And we knew that as we went forward, we would have problems, because people with disabilities would have problems with our traditional hiring practices. When it comes to finding a job, a person with a disability dies a death of 1,000 cuts. I know this as an employer. I know it as a father. They don't have the right experience we're looking for. They may not interview well. They may learn differently than we're accustomed to teaching. They may look differently. They may act differently. They may talk differently. And the unkindest cut is the belief by most of us that people with disabilities really can't do the job. That hiring a person with a disability is a great thing to do if you can afford it. So, when news got out about this, you would have thought we cured cancer. One of the people that heard about it was Desiree. Desiree has a rare muscle condition. She was living in California, and this muscle condition that makes it difficult for her to walk. One day she comes in to work with her walker, and her boss says, "What's the deal with the walker?" And Desiree says, "I don't need it all the time, but sometimes I do." And her boss said, "Great, come back when you don't." She moved her family across the country a year before we opened just for the chance to apply. And today she's a manager in that building. People will ask, what kind of disabilities could we not hire? I remember somebody talking about mental illness. And I thought, I know we have people with depression, radical changes in mood, obsessive compulsive disorder, explosive anger disorder, paranoia, and that's just the senior executives at Walgreens. Why not? Why not? We have not found a single disability that we would have to exclude, because every disability is a range. We can't hire every person with a disability, just like we can't hire every person without a disability, but we hired some terrific people. Like Angie. Angie has cerebral palsy, graduated from college with highest honors, couldn't find a job. Probably the best HR person, human resources person I've ever worked with. Or Harrison, young man has autism. He performs every job at 150%. Who would have never been able to get through our online job application. And there are hundreds like him. And that 30% that we were looking for became 40%. And the building became our most productive in our history. We published the results. People with disabilities perform as well or better, have better retention, and work safer. And the most incredible thing that surprised us was the impact on culture, on teamwork. Managers will talk about how their job is to make everybody around them successful. And when you have a business where everybody's focused on the objective and making each other successful in achieving it, it's like lightning in a bottle. And the university came in and made an award-winning study and confirmed what we had observed. But let's hear from the managers themselves what it's like to work in a building like this versus what they're used to working in. Why have power if we don't use it for good? In 2007, Walgreens launched a new generation of distribution centers like no other in the world. The objective was to build the most productive center ever and to employ a large number of people with disabilities.
The one element that I've never allowed into my management style, nor into any facility that I've ever been into, and that's managing with love, managing with care, managing with a heart. That's the big change here.
It's all about the people.
To manage and be successful in our building, you have to focus on the individual.
Everybody has a different motivator, and it's up to the man to define what that motivator is.
It takes a lot of creativity and to come in with no fear.
I am allowed to be creative with the team members, that it's not a hardline stance to where either you get it or you don't get it. It's an opportunity to see what the issue is and work with that team member.
That relationship that you make with an individual, whether they have a disability or not, makes or breaks that person's success.
We are very focused in this building on making folks successful.
As far as the key indicators that we look at for safety and productivity, we are the number one in our division.
We started each day as one. When Daryl made production, we all made production. When Melissa did excellent at accuracy, we all did excellent with accuracy. When John worked safely, we all worked safely.
It changes the whole culture of a building. You will have a team that thinks about other people before they think about themselves.
We've all been changed.
It's made me a better manager. It's made me a better man. It's made me a better father and a better husband.
I'm a better leader because of it. I got more compassion, got more patience, which has not always been a strong suit of mine. I see folks for who they are now, as opposed to what they look like.
People with disabilities perform the same jobs, earn the same pay, and are held to the same performance standards as everyone else. The center is the most productive in the company's history. Over 30% of the workforce has a disability. Most had never been able to secure a steady job before. The idea spread, and within 4 years, over 1,000 people with disabilities were working in centers across the country. That's the best testimony. So like I said, it was spread all to the rest of the other centers. And that original 200 is now closer to 2,000 and growing. And we also opened our doors up to other companies to come and learn and share our lessons and meet with management to ask those questions like, does it really work? What's a bad day like? How do you motivate someone? Many companies have come and launched their own initiatives. And I hope you will come visit sometime too, and I invite you to do that. Or more importantly, to consider launching a similar initiative where you work. And I've brought gifts for you, an outline of how it works. I've purchased books for you to read the story about it. Or you can go online and get the study or the magazine article or see the movie. Now, people will ask, what's the hardest thing about doing this? And when I talk to other people that have, we all agree. Fear. Fear of failure, fear of loss of status. Fear makes us small. That's something we had to deal with. Now, about 10 years ago, I was in California, and I was passing by a shoe shine stand, and the man working there told me I needed a shoe shine. So I sat down, and he started to work. His name is Alan Feaster. And I asked him, how long has he been shining shoes? And he says, a long time. And I said, are you thinking about retiring? And he says, I am. And I said, what are you going to do? And he says, I think I'm going to change the California prison system. That wasn't even on the list. And he tells me about his son who gets sentenced to the California Youth Authority. It's for young offenders age 14 to 21. And after a few weeks there, his son Darrell hanged himself. And Alan said, my son didn't go in there without hope. There's something wrong with putting boys in with men, and I want to change that. And he pulled out this notebook and had clippings from newspaper and pictures and him testifying before the California legislature. And I followed him over the years to see how he was going. Alan launched a movement that closed all the California youth authorities in California and reformed the entire youth prison system. A man whose office is a shoe shine stand. And we say, what can I do? I'm just one person. So in the end, the question we have to ask, who better to build the world we long for than us? Why have power if we don't use it for good? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Randy, for a very inspirational speech. I will now invite our other colleagues of the panel to join us here on stage. So I would invite Martin Burt from Paraguay. Michel Roy from France. Luc Kortbeek from Belgium. Cécile Renoir from France.
You've put the level very high.
And Chiara Condi from the US. So, welcome everyone to this panel. And once again, thank you, Randy, for such an inspirational story and such an inspirational life. It has been a pleasure to listen to that story, and it gives us all hope of building a better world and of bringing everyone to our story. So what we'll try to do now, there are, in this panel, there are different angles towards inclusiveness. There are different dimensions that are complementary between themselves. And so what we will try to do is I will ask every member of the panel to have a short comment on what we've just heard from Randy, and then to go on and share each one's own experience on inclusiveness from different angles so that at the end, by putting everything together, we can have a broader view on how to promote inclusiveness in business. So I would start with Chiara. Can I invite you to do a short comment on Randy's talk and then to go into your own experience? I will have to be strict on time,
okay,
because we are on a tight schedule.
Okay, perfect. So there are a lot of things that I saw in Randy's presentation that I particularly advocate for, but one thing that struck me is really important, and I think we have to demystify when we're talking about diversity, and I saw this working a lot with companies, is that we somehow intellectually we all know that diversity is good, right? There's a justice element, there are numbers, there are McKinsey studies that show the companies that are not diverse underperform by 29%. BCG shows that diversity drives innovation. There's a 20% difference in innovation revenue with companies that are diverse. So why don't we do it? Well, I think we don't do it because we're afraid. It's fear. And Randy brought this up, and I think that this is something that we have to openly talk about, because this fear makes it that we, as human beings, we want to choose the world that we know. If you go on Google, and you Google CEO, you see that all the images that come up are men, because that's the world that we live in. So when somebody comes up to us that doesn't look like that, well, it's not our nature to go and say, well, because you're different, you're going to succeed. No, it's our nature to say, I'm taking a risk. Because if I hire what I know what my results are going to be. Even though all the studies show that we will get the greatest advantages by being diverse. And I think that that's really important. And I've been working with women who have suffered from violence and getting them to a position of entrepreneurship, which might seem, counterintuitive, because you have women who are in very difficult situations, have often never worked, maybe in the professional sphere, have had a lot of difficulties, and basically the world has given up on them. And what happens is that we have 250 volunteers who come together and they say, okay, no, we are as human beings, we are part of the problem we're part of the people who created this problem, we are part of the solution. We each give our time a little bit, at least 3 hours per year. That's all we ask. And together we build a machine that can transform their lives. And I remember one woman who we took who had faced discrimination, because in France there was a law that if you opened a garage, you could only have changing rooms for men and women. So nobody wanted to change their garage to hire her professionally, because they had to change their space. So she worked in the black market for 20 years. And this is what the subtle gender diversity, by the way, the problem is today with gender discrimination. It's this unconscious bias. But in any case, she came to us, and she, aside from suffering from violence and discrimination, she didn't know where to start her business, even though she had all the skills. And we put her through our program, and only 3 months after the program, we sent her into a hackathon with all people who came from elite schools in France, and nobody knew where she was coming from, but she won that hackathon. So her potential was there all the time, before we took her on, before she came to Led by Her, before we helped her, but nobody had ever helped her realize that. And today she's running a successful business, has been featured in magazines, and is a very successful entrepreneur. But she would have never had that chance had these 250 people never put out their hand to help her. So I think it's really important, like Randy said, it's being that person who makes the gesture of trust. And that trust often goes against what is our instinct and what our mind is telling us. And it's making that leap of faith into a human being who is different from us. And that's a really, really important concept. And something that I've learned, because I also work with companies now on diversity, is that it's, like I said, diversity is very difficult to grasp, because it's easy intellectually, but very difficult to apply on your daily life. And one woman who said to me in the program, she said to me, Kira, and these are women who have suffered from violence, she said, before I came here, I thought all men were bad because my relationships were abusive, because I, had problems, it was in a milieu of drugs, and this was all led by men. These were all the men that I saw in my life. But now that I've been led by her, I learned that not all men are like that. There are men who come here and teach me for free. There are men who mentor my project. There are men who made me successful. There's another example of mankind that I didn't know. And I think that that's how we change our mentality about diversity. It's one person at a time, and by sharing and by experience. Because had I told her men are good, she would have never had that experience. But she learned through herself. And this is the same thing that I've been doing now in companies, is that we have companies come in and managers, and they experience working with our women, what they're going through, helping them on their project, helping them advance concretely, and they become part of the cause. And each one of them, each one of the people that walk in the room, they are changed because they see things in a different way, and they will go home in a different way, and they will become a different person, and then they will revolutionize their milieu in another way. And this has also made me want to go even more into companies. And now I'm doing basically village talks in law firms and places where we talk about the difficulties of diversity. Because I think that one of the huge things that has stopped it from happening is that there is so much taboo and so much difficulty about facing the subject and what the reality is. But when people come and they can express themselves and they can say what they feel, and by the way, when I did this, 60% men came. It was very, very powerful. And one man asked me, what can I do, because I feel like I treat my women and my male and female interns differently. And I said, well, I can't, I can tell you that it's bad, but you won't know why and you won't believe me. I said, give the female intern something that you would give to your male intern, and then when she does it and she basically outperforms everything that you think she can do, that is when you're going to start believing that it's right.
Thank you, Cara. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Michelle, can I ask you for a short comment and your own experience as well?
Yes. I must say that Randy's testimony touched me strongly. I also have a child who has disability. Some of you know. My elder son has the Down syndrome. And so we've been struggling as well, not in the same, well, probably in the same way as you've done as well. So now he's 33. He has a job in a protected workshop, and he lives in a home of l'Arche in Paris. So quite emotional. Now, what I've retained from your testimony is that we can bring things to scale. This is something fundamental. It cannot be just 1, 2, 3. I will come back on the vulnerable afterwards, but we have to really, you have really to engage and make things different, make this world different by going to scale. And the second thing, the last testimony, is that one man can make changes in policies. So that's a big hope. We can change. If one person can really change things like this, I think we can change it. So that's very powerful for me. The question was, in a period of globalization of indifference, how did you feel the responsibility to include the most vulnerable? I'm the Secretary General of Caritas Internationalis. This is a confederation of Caritas, national Caritas organizations. There are 165 in the world, so my experience is not just there. It's more of a testimony of what members are doing, analyzing and doing. But when we speak of globalization of indifference, which Pope Francis insisted so much upon, I think we have to add a new thing now, which is the globalization of rejection and of hostility. What we see what is happening around the world is not just not looking at, it's rejecting, it's throwing away, it's excluding. So this is the result, I think, of the present culture, which is been invading the world thanks to globalization, which is the one of individualism, of materialism, of secularism, where people have grown down, I mean, are less human. People are less human. They don't have this quality to look beyond. And so we have to fight indifference, we have to fight rejection and hostility. The most vulnerable are not only people with disabilities. They are the poor globally, and in some societies, the vulnerable are the majority of the population. We would think first of people with disability, of orphans, displaced people, the elderly who live alone, but it's much more than that. It's people who've lost a job. It's family who've broke out, and everyone is going down in his own way. So I think we have to think of vulnerable big, and not only with people with specific disabilities, even if that is, and maybe it's central, Pope Francis puts the figure of the migrant person as the type of the person who is the most poor. When, if you listen to him on a regular basis, he doesn't speak of the homeless as being the type of the poorest, it's the migrant person. So I think we have to think, you have to think broad about vulnerability. Now, concretely, Caritas, what I see, what I know of my own experience in France before. Now I'm French, but I live in Rome. Our office is in Vatican City, as you may know. Very simple things, like facilitating return to a job through accompaniment. Somebody who's been in the street, who's lost a job, maybe still living in the family, needs a specific push to be able to go back to work. And we need businessmen who are open to welcoming people who've gone through very difficult lives and who are brought, accompanied by Caritas or other organizations. We have lots of qualified volunteers that are helping people find a way back to normal life, to inclusion.
Michel, 2 minutes.
Wow. Okay. Another example is bringing people who are being used outside of any regulation in the normal working space. Caritas in Italy has started a project called Presidio 3.0, where seasonal laborers working in agriculture as slaves are being slowly put back into the mainstream. Creating jobs. A number of Caritas organizations are creating or helping people to start business, small entrepreneurship. So that's another thing where business can interact and facilitate this. We also have refugees, permanently displaced people, people under siege like in Gaza, who have capacity to start jobs as well. So there are programs funded by the US mainly in Gaza, of which internships, apprenticeships, entrepreneurship through training, small startup grants, vocational training programs developing. Now, 2 more points, which are actually the most important. I think Amina introduced us to what she calls social economy, solidarity economy. We see in Caritas that this is really the future for economy for many people who are nowadays excluded, to create economy that is an inclusive one, which is focused on the people very much. Yours is a huge thing, but solidarity economy is creating many small enterprises, and we would have to go further into that, but it can be in the cities, it can be in the rural areas. The last one is about impact investing. Many initiatives, like the one Amina has presented, are so good signs of what can be done to include people, that they should be replicated at scale. And this is not possible when we are just an association or an NGO. We need investors to do that. So invest into such initiatives that have proven that they can make the difference in people's lives. We have also lots of experiences in there. You may have been invited to an impact investing conference in Rome last July, which was the third one, so there will be more, and I think it would be interesting for you to participate in that. Co-organized by the Dicastery for the Promotion of Integral Human Development and CRS, our US member. So, to finish here, I think you are expected. Create a conducive environment for people to be able to have a job or to take initiative and realize their projects. Invest in skills training, in education, in accompaniment. Facilitate apprenticeship and return to work for people who have not been working for long. Tutors, people who will do this accompaniment are fundamental in these steps. And encourage and partner with solidarity economy, which may look strange to you because you are traditional businessmen, but it really, to us, looks as a very important part of future economy.
Thank you, Michel.
Thank you.
I would now ask Luc to give us your experience.
Yes, thank you, Rui. It's if you're thinking about the future of work, then one of the sentences we use a lot is, no one can be excluded. No one can be left behind. And diversity, of course, is a very important issue for us. And one of these people that we cannot leave behind is the disabled people, of course. And this is a good principle. And there are rules in a lot of our countries. But this is one. The second is, of course, to have the reality and to have the examples. And for this, you gave us a very good example. And we need this example to show us that this kind of policy as business is possible. So thank you for this, Randy. So which are the challenges at this moment? They are, we have a lot of, it's climate change. Climate change and the impacts at this moment are real, and they are for a lot caused by human activity. And action cannot be an option, but a human and an ethical obligation. We have the growing inequalities. We have the unemployment that remains unacceptably high. We have 300 million workers in extreme poverty, and millions of people die of work-related accidents every year. Wage growth has not kept pace with productivity gains, and women are 20% less than men. And policies that encourage short-term gains rather than long-term gains, investments, have contributed to these trends. And added to this, we have the new technology. And the new technology will give us new work and new jobs, that's clear, but will give us also some new risks. And of course, fear is always very important, but we cannot live from fear. And therefore, if you're looking back to the history, then we know that we had already other fundamental disruptions. You know all the word disruption at this moment, but we had it already before. Behind us, it was after the First World War, for example. We had we came from a very difficult situation, and at that moment, the world made a choice. In the Treaty of Versailles, the world made the choice to bring employers workers and governments together, and they created the International Labour Organization. And in fact, if you look back to this, this is one of the most ambitious social contracts in history. And now, in fact, what are we doing? Because we are almost at the center of this organization. At this moment, we are thinking with a group of 28 people coming from north and south, from east and west, 14 women, 14 men, coming from workers, from employers, from governments, a lot of wise people too. And so with this we are thinking about how do we think the future of work needs to be. And one of the areas who is very important is investing in sustainable employment. And one of the thoughts we have is that we have to measure the economy not only by GDP. We need to take into account well-being, working conditions, environment, distribution of incomes, and another measure can give us also another kind of policy. Secondly, fair businesses rely on longer-term investment horizons, incentives, and we need to encourage these long-term investments. The level playing field can only be reached by wide-reaching reforms of tax policy to reduce tax avoidance in support of a human investment agenda. And this is more needed than ever in the digital economy, shifting from the practice of taxing based on physical presence and instead tax at the source of profits. We will need these means for the necessary investments, together with credit allocation mechanisms and loan guarantee programs for the targeted investment programs.
Luke, 2 minutes.
Okay. We also need both new action to address the concentrated power associated with this technology campaign. If we want to be equal, we need to put them under some rules. And we will need investments to create employment for the people. And it is possible if you think, for example, about the care economy. It's one of the most convincing cases for a major investing program. We have the green economy is another example, and investment in rural economy. A second a second area is the investing in people, and this is really a cornerstone. And we have to invest in people. We have the universal right to education, which is widely recognized, and this needs to become a universal entitlement to lifelong learning. We need a stronger social protection, leading to real social security systems, and a transformative agenda for the gender equality. So these are one of the thoughts, and in my second intervention, I will come to the third area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cécile,
yes.
Please.
First, thanks, Randy, for the, I think, marvelous testimony of the personal responsibility of a leader. And as also you mentioned, the fact that you show very well how a personal commitment can change, in a way, the rules of the game, or at least help make people more sensitive to structural issues. So I think that was great. And I think it helps us also maybe recognize in our own lives how our personal experiences shape the way we look at the world around us. And for me, that's a major issue. If we want to change things, and we know that we are facing global issues, you just mentioned them, that the global situation is critical on so many aspects, and we, as you also mentioned at the beginning, sometimes we don't know why people don't change, we ourselves don't change. And for me, and I am a nun also, I belong to a religious order, an international one, and we often ask to ourselves, and we work in education, what can we do to empower our students, to help people feel that they can play a role, that each life is unique, and if we gather and join our efforts, we can really work not only at a local level, but also trying to reflect on structural issues. And myself, I've been working at Acege Business School for the past 12 years, and I've created a research program aimed at assessing the impact of multinational corporations on sustainable development in different countries. I've worked with Total, the French company, to assess the impact of Total in Nigeria for years, with Danone, another company, on recycling issues, with waste pickers in Indonesia, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina. Also, well, just a few examples. And what is for me very important is to try to reflect on the contribution of companies at two levels. The first one has to see with direct responsibility, maybe how companies can be held accountable for their direct impacts on society. And it has to see with the cartography and how they assess the different impacts on the people, on the clients, on the customers, on for of course of their employees, but also on value chains for also the people employed by the subcontractors. And there are many issues, and we see that regulations are evolving, I think in a good sense. For example, we have had the law on due diligence in France, and all over the world there are efforts in order to take to pay more attention to global value chains. So, and I think that's a first responsibility which regard the different territories where the companies have activities. But then there is a second kind of responsibility which is related to structural issues, how the current rules of the game. We see that's what also Professor Zamani said yesterday. The current rules of the games are not consistent with global issues such as climate change, such as global inequalities. So I think that business people have a role to play in order to advocate to change, in order to change the rules of the game. In terms, you mentioned taxation. Then I work with some people who are experts in accounting, and there are some proposals who are currently made in order to change the accounting standards in order to really integrate social and environmental impacts in the way we assess the lasting quality of businesses. And I think it's really key if we want to make sure that financial and extra-financial issues are more convergent. And this second responsibility, sometimes maybe it has to see with direct responsibilities for companies, but most of the time it's an indirect and shared responsibility with others. And I really do think that it's key that business leaders jointly with public authorities, with NGOs and civil society, really think about the necessary change in the structural issues. And that's why I've just created a small institution, which is called the Campus de la Création, de la Transition. It's a beautiful, and trying to be complementary to what business schools, engineering schools, and universities are offering to the students. The idea is to welcome some of these students or professionals who could come to a place which is located 1 hour from Paris. It's a chateau which was given to my order 70 years ago by an owner who asked my order to work in education and with a social perspective. And then now, for the 2 past years, the chateau has been empty, so I was given it with my team in order to develop a perspective where we could welcome young people and professionals in order for them to live, to experiment something about the necessary ecological and social transition, realize that it's not only a question of changing our mindset, but it has to see also with the way we live, we envision the quality of relationships with one another, and try to reflect collectively with professors, researchers, public authorities from the neighboring towns and villages, with the civil society, try to all of us be in transition and promote a transition of the territories and see how we can create jobs, try to promote meaningful lives while working with one another. And that's for me a key issue, is try to see how this kind of initiative can network with other initiatives all around the world, and of course with the business world, in order to really integrate social and ecological issues within the curricula and within business activities. So I think it's a great perspective for all of us, and it's maybe what we say, each one of us, is the fact that together we can, and we really can change things, and we have to be completely convinced of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Martin, in order to finalize this first round, your comments and thoughts.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'd like to thank the Catholic University for having us here, and particularly Randy. I think you touched a very important nerve in all of us, because what you did was confronted with the fear of your family. Instead of burying your talent, you embraced it. And I think that you touched the nerve of what the Pope is saying of enterprise as a noble vocation. It is very, very dangerous. It's filled with fear. What if I cannot do it? So we had the same situation in Paraguay with the Paraguayan Association of Christian Enterprises, ADEC, who we have a delegation here, and we're working with the Paraguayan Christian businesses. Now we're also working with a Mexican association, social association of businesses, and our Brazilian friends are there. We have a problem. On the one hand, we as businesses have to maximize profit. That is our business. And on the other hand, we have to have a preferential option for the poor. How do we reconcile this? And there have been many attempts to come up with a shared value, corporate social responsibility. And today I would like to share with you what we are trying to do to address this problem. We have created a program called Business Without Poverty, Empresas Sin Pobreza, with the Paraguayan Association of Businesses. And it is no reduction, no alleviation. What does poverty elimination look like? And we came up with a list of 50 conditions that have to be addressed in order to eliminate poverty. It took us many years. We consulted with thousands and thousands of poor people in South America and in Africa and in Asia. And we looked at income, employment, education, culture, health, environment, housing, infrastructure. Then we realized also participation and organization, and also interiority and motivation. And we said self-esteem, violence against women, capacity to resolve conflicts are as important as having a family budget, earning above the poverty line, having diversified sources of income, having a proper flushing toilet. And what we did is, with every company, the head of HR calls the workers and has the worker self-diagnose their own situation in a very simple technology. Using a tablet, it takes 20 minutes. For every indicator, you have a green condition, non-poor, yellow, poor, or red, extreme poor. So, do I have stable income? Yellow. Do I have access to credit? I do. Green. Do I have family savings? No. Red. Do I have diversified sources of income? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Yellow. Do I have papers, ID forms, driver's license? Yes. Do I have access to drinking water? Yes. Is there a health post nearby? Not really. Do we eat good food in my house? Yellow. Do we have personal hygiene? I think so. And what you do is with this, you create not a poverty index, but a dashboard. Every worker with a dashboard. But for the family, not for the worker, because you cannot get your cleaning lady or your stevedore from out of poverty if the daughter is not vaccinated, doesn't have proper nutrition, or so we discovered the truth of poverty elimination is not counting people by individuals, but by families. And what did we discover? That my country does not have 7 million people. We only have 1.6 million families. Brazil doesn't have 200 million people. They only have 50 million families. The world doesn't have 7 billion people. We have been counting wrong with this economist idea of reducing people. Don't reduce people to individuals. We are families because nobody is poor alone.
Martin, 1 minute.
And when families have a dashboard, they create their family plan to overcome poverty. And this is where the company helps identify ways in which the workers can prioritize and find services that are available there. We now have more and more companies in different countries. In South Africa, we have dozens of companies in Cape Town, in Johannesburg, and Durban, at embracing this. And it is counterintuitive. When you look to eliminate the poverty affecting your workers, you maximize profits. Because as deprivations go down for the workers, productivity goes up. So this is where you kill two birds with one stone. Eliminate poverty and increase profits and productivity, less turnover, less absenteeism, more motivation, more commitment to this, just like you said in Walgreens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. Randy, we've listened to different angles of inclusiveness, all very enriching. If we were to follow an example like the one you've portrayed, what would you say were the critical success factors that you had in order to make Walgreens' example a success? What were the critical things that one needs to be aware of if we were to follow that example?
I've never thought about that. No, okay, but just on the fly, I can think of 5 things.
Okay.
One is an executive champion, somebody who has the desire, the opportunity, and the authority to do this. Not the CEO, because we vice presidents know how to avoid CEO directives. It's called creative foot dragging. The senior executive provides the energy around this. Secondly, what is the big dream? the big dream is what overcomes the fear. When we see we're part of the solution of something we've been exposed to, the dream is bigger than the fear. The dream keeps us going when we fall down and back up. And part of that is a good place to start. I call that the mountain. It's a good place to start. It's got a top, that's the dream, and we have measures to know how we're doing to get there. That's the mountain. The other is an alternative way to get into the company, knowing that our processes will get in the way. That's the third part. Having a local champion where you're ever going to do this, you pick a site or a town you're going to do this in, but the local general manager has to believe in this because they're the person everybody else will look to when the executive champion is not there. And then lastly, we didn't know anything about people with disabilities. So what we did is we said we need to find somebody in the community that has access to people with disabilities, who can come in and understand our jobs, not just our job descriptions, because I don't know about the rest of the world, but in the United States, we do not have a job description that does not say good communication skills. Job descriptions are inaccurate. Understand the jobs and then goes out there and finds the people for them. Those are the ones that either when we see a success or not, it's always one of those.
That was great. For the first time we thought about it. That's a great answer. So we have now time for a final round of 2 minutes each. And what I would ask you to do in those final remarks would be for you, we have a lot of business leaders in the room. Each one of you shared with us different examples of inclusiveness. What I would now ask you is, what would be your asks or your suggestions for the business leaders in the room if they go back to their companies, to their work environments, to be able to promote more inclusiveness in their own reality? What would be your asks, your comments, your suggestions? So I would now start in a different way. Michel?
Okay, thanks. I think I finished my own thing by calling upon you, so I will do it in a bit different way now, but Caritas is present everywhere in the world, so in your country you must know Caritas. The name may not be Caritas, but it is the church's caritative organization, not working only on what traditionally is called charity. It's about development of everyone, of the poorest. So if you're not yet in touch with your Caritas, please get in touch with your Caritas, and you can develop work together to facilitate inclusiveness of people facing poverty, especially with employment creation, or what has been said here. So a second thing is don't be afraid to go into politics, because all of us have to engage in a way and we are together, we are more in this, to change this world so that everyone will be able to grow and have a decent and dignified life. So this example of, I forgot his name, the shoe shiner.
Alan Feaster.
I think is an invitation for all of us to engage also there. We know that beyond what we do, what you do as businessmen, you have the capacity to also address policies which are not doing good to people. So poverty cannot be solved only by, acting in the neighborhood. It also has to touch the structures. And a third thing, we have not spoken a lot of Laudato Si, but invite you to read again Laudato Si and to see how, as businessmen, you can make this necessary change, this transition that Cécile is speaking about, so that the future generations may have a world which will be nice for them to live in.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Cécile?
I think in the same direction, I would say that maybe a core challenge is to really integrate CSR in the core business strategy. For example, I have a friend of mine who is a top executive in a big company. He was given 2 missions, being in charge of the strategy on the one hand and of CSR on the other hand. And he keeps telling to his CEO that it's not possible to go on like this, that he really has to make sure that CSR is envisioned as not only corporate, I prefer to speak of corporate responsibilities than corporate social responsibilities, because in fact, corporate responsibilities has to involve also financial and economic value, the way you create value and the way you share, and maybe the first objective, and to see whether the value is created and shared in a just way is the key important thing. So for me, that's a main issue, and it means that if you think in this perspective, then you will reflect with others on changing the metrics. And then it has to see with what you were mentioning concerning the political role of business people, and is to promote, maybe I would say, advocacy rather than lobbying for short-term interests. Advocacy to promote the common good and make sure that you have a better level playing field. That was my suggestion.
Thank you. Luke?
Let me start there with the level playing field. In fact, I like CSR. I like a lot of initiatives taken by business people, but in fact, it's not sufficient, because at that moment you will not have the level playing field, and you need this. You need this, of course, and therefore, I think that with the with the ILO, we will go in the direction of something as a general labor protection schemes, and then it's for all companies, contractors, subcontractors, intermediators, global supply chains, to give the same protection. We think about freedom of association, recognition of the collective bargaining, and freedom freedom from forced labor, freedom from child labor, from discrimination, and a set of basic working conditions, adequate living wage, limits on working hours, and occupational safety and health. And this would ensure that all workers, part-time, full-time, temporary, permanent contracts, on-call or casual contracts, so all the workers in these new times with new technologies, and we think this is important to build up the new world of work. And of course, we have the conventions of the ILO. The conventions of the ILO are international treaties, and therefore, my call to you is it's important to respect them in every country. In a lot of them, they ratified these conventions, and I think that the responsibility, the social responsibility, is important to take it up with your workers, with the government. And I've seen a lot of examples all over the world, and the best results you can reach it in the good dialogue between governments, employers, and workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Chiara, your own remarks and asks.
I think we've been coming at it a lot from a social justice case, which I think is important, but I think that there's also a really strong business case for profitability that comes from diversity. And it's been shown by a researcher in the US, Scott Page, that if you have people, and measured into equations, that if you have people who have different points of view, what happens is that you get different ideas and solutions to to one problem instead of just one solution, and you can choose together the best solution and throw out all the other solutions. So that's going to make your business win. And that's even more powerful than picking different stocks to hedge your bet, because there you just get the average. Here you get the best solution and only the best solution. And I think last week, for example, there's another case. I was in a bank, and there was somebody who had a handicap, and he had created an application for that bank to make it more accessible for handicapped people, but then also for elderly people. So it was millions of people that the bank could access because he had created this because he had a handicap. And this is because people who have diverse backgrounds, they see the world differently, and so they can create different solutions given the experience that they have. And this is why we need diverse people, because otherwise we're never going to innovate. We're going to keep making the same things, and you're never going to be competitive in tomorrow's world. And women are 50% of the population. We are not a minority. And so they need to be represented in the products and in the things that you're creating for the future, because they're a huge market. So I think all of this makes it so that I think we need to, more than talk about CSR, we need to talk about how can we integrate these values in the DNA of the company. So it's with everything, every step that we do, with our clients, with our customers, with the people who work for us. It's part of our policy in every single action.
Martin?
When we started our program, Business Without Poverty, many companies said, I am afraid of asking my workers how they're doing, because the first thing they will ask is for a raise. However, it didn't happen, because the employer doesn't ask the worker, how are you doing? The worker asks herself, how am I doing? It is a self-diagnosis. How am I doing in nutrition? How am I doing with my house? And when that happens, that is the conscientization. So when this awareness happens, you get dignity. Because when the families own their poverty, they recover their dignity. And when they recover their dignity, they are empowered to answer yes to two questions. Is it worth it? And can I do it? And when workers own their situation, we can separate for once and for all poor families versus non-poor families. We are all poor. Because you and I may be poor in eyesight, I may be overweight, you may have a problem with your toilet is not working, and you may have a problem that you cannot keep a job. We are all poor. But the good news is that we created, with the Association of Paraguayan Business Companies, a community of best practices where we meet at the offices and we combine. How did you address this problem of building an extra bedroom? How did you address this problem of violence against women? How did you address? And it's all coming from the bottom up. So, and in the same way, companies started creating catalogs of inventory of best practices on how the 7 ways that a family can build an extra bedroom, the 15 ways that you can have additional income, etc. So we're here to answer any questions. If somebody is ready to jump into this lake full of crocodiles, come and talk to me.
Nobody will want.
Thank you. Randy, what would be your challenge, your encouragement to us as business leaders in order to promote more inclusiveness based on your experience?
Well, now I probably work more as an accidental advocate in this space, so I've learned a lot on the other side. I think the difference between people that do something and people that don't is a two-step process: to be exposed to the issue, to be exposed to the problem, because most of us go through life just fending off the rocks of everyday living. We don't see it. But once we're exposed, to help ourselves envision ourselves as part of the solution. That's the second piece. And then what gets us from here to there is overcoming that fear. And my wife Kay reminded me last night that the courage is not an absence of fear. It's overcoming fear. And again, that is when the dream is bigger than the risk, it's easy to overcome. It is a calling you cannot do, because people often, and I think we talk to all of us, why are you doing this? I think our answer is, how could we not do it, knowing that we might be successful? And even if we're not successful, it's still the most meaningful work of our lives. And that's what we've got to get to.
So we are coming to an end of our panel. I would like to thank you all for very encouraging stories, very encouraging sharing of your own experiences. I think we get out of here with clear ideas that we need to focus on people. We need to focus on all people, not just in some people. We need to bring everyone together with us. We cannot leave people behind. And of course, that's everyone's responsibility. But when we put it like everyone's responsibility, it seems like it is no one's responsibility. Right. And we need to more and more think about it as this is my responsibility, not everyone's responsibility, but my responsibility. And if we are not the ones doing it, as Randy just put it, who would be doing it for us? Thanks a lot.
Muito obrigado aos membros do painel. Queria só que ficassem no palco para tirar uma fotografia. E, entretanto, vou chamando o Joe Atten, do Líbano, para nos fazer uma pequena apresentação sobre a realidade da associação no Líbano. Pedia também a todos os congressistas que vão à peregrinação a Fátima que no final desta sessão pudessem passar pela recepção das inscrições para confirmarem a sua ida. É muito importante que fiquem registados e confirmados. Então, dou a palavra ao Joe Atten. Joe.
It's working. Hello, everyone. I know it has been a long and tense morning. I suppose we're all tired and hungry. However, I will ask you for 10 minutes of focus and attention, if you may. I'm here to speak about our association, EDC Lebanon. You know what EDC stands for? Entrepreneurs et Dirigeants Chrétiens, Christian Leaders and Entrepreneurs. I will first introduce myself. I'm Joe Hatem, born 1955 in Lebanon. I'm married to Pascal. She's here somewhere. She's here. Father to George. I studied mechanical engineering in France and decided to return in Lebanon in 1982 amidst the war. It was a tough decision because mechanical engineering of mine was geared toward producing planes and automobiles, which we do not do in Lebanon. I had to reconvert myself, and I founded a software house. In Lebanon, I'm member in a number of social associations, and presently I am the president of EDC Lebanon. Although the whole thing is not about me, it's about EDC. EDC was founded in 2006 by Bishop Guy Paul Noujaim, present with us here. This outstanding man was the root and the founder for over 20 humanitarian associations. It was also founded by late Raymond Sfer. Raymond is no longer here, but he is still with us. He passed away a year ago, exactly. And we want to dedicate our presence today, a delegation of 13 Lebanese people here today, to the memory of Raymond. Thank you. For me, it's been 10 years with Odyssey. I joined back 10 years ago. Today, we came here to highlight the contribution to the common good of the Christian business leaders of Lebanon. Lebanon, which is this multi-confessional country in the Middle East, we'll get back to that. Typically, people don't know where Lebanon is, so here is where Lebanon is. We're just at the other edge of the Mediterranean. We're at the eastmost bound of Europe, so to say. We're in the middle of the Middle East, and we'll get back to that. We're presently kind of an island with the Mediterranean on the west, with Syria on the east, Syria, which is a war country, not allowing us much to move, and with a non-friendly neighbor on the south. This is Lebanon. This is our national flag, which I introduce proudly. What am I going to talk about now? The mission of Lebanon, the Christian presence, the environment in Lebanon, the refugees challenge, I'm sure you heard about this a lot, the enterprises and the common good, and an action plan. Lebanon is geographically a symbolic location for many reasons. To begin with, not the least, but to begin with, Jesus is so close to where I live. We are very close, probably 100 kilometers, nothing. Our area is where Jesus has done most of his deeds, if not all of them. And Lebanon, as you saw on the map, is a joining point between east and west for what this means in terms of contact between cultures, contact between communities, between religions. This has imposed on Lebanon a mission. And the Lebanese have developed, probably due to their location, a high capacity for adaptation and integration, a very strong entrepreneur spirit. I suppose that all of you know that wherever in the world you will go, there will be Lebanese at work. This has also encompassed an economic and cultural openness and the readiness for the exchange and the dialogue. The Christian presence. In Lebanon, at the end of World War I, it would have been possible for the Christians to say, we want a country of our own, alone. Instead of that, we have chosen to have a multi-religious country. This choice hasn't been easy, it wasn't painless, and we have faced multiple wars, the last of which was probably 2006, a major one, then some minor ones, and maybe there is one lurking right now. If you read the news, you know that there are so many American and Russian ships in the sea just in front of the shores of Lebanon. Where is this getting us? I have no clue. None of you has any clue, I suppose, as well. Yet, beyond all those difficulties, the Christian participation in the social life and in the building of the common good in Lebanon has never stopped. We can witness a strong resilience of the Christian entrepreneurs in spite of their ability to expatriate. Probably thanks to the church and the clergy, there are many educational facilities, universities, and schools in Lebanon, which have prepared the Lebanese to expatriate themselves extremely easily. I myself could have made a fortune in California with my IT ability, but we chose to stay. In the Middle East, the Christians have proved to be a model of perseverance in spite of being minorities in so many places: Egypt, Syria, Iraq, and also Lebanon somehow. Nevertheless, we have played a primary role in the renaissance of the culture, the economy, and the patriotism in the Arab world, not only in Lebanon. We have proved to be an example of openness to universal and Western cultures. We have proved to be a role model in perseverance. We have played a role. All this in an environment which is probably blessed with many resources, whether natural, cultural, historical, archaeological, touristic. But we have also around us many disruptive conflicts. The Israeli-Palestinian conflicts, which doesn't seem to reach an end, is also a source of stress on our lives. And right now, the ongoing Sunni and Shia Islamic strife is also part of the stress. Not to mention the hegemonic ambitions of regional and international powers. I will not stress too much on this. This is too political. We have also the refugees situation to overcome. We will get back to this, which results into growing economic difficulties, a drain of human resources who find it easier maybe to run away and build a new life elsewhere. And with them goes the money as well. There is an outflight of financial capital. Taxation system locally also doesn't help. To put this into perspective, I'd like to tell you that in Europe, someone told me that when he donated 10,000 euros to an association, because this money was tax deductible, it ended costing him 3,000. When a Lebanese entrepreneur decides to give 10,000 euros to an association, it will cost him 10,000. If you add to this income tax, it might grow to 12,000. Let's get to the refugees. The globalization has probably facilitated the migration for anyone who doesn't feel safe in his country. And we cannot blame anyone for running away, running for their life, running away from misery, trying to find a new hope. Lebanon is a country of 4 million national Lebanese. But to these, you must add 1.5 million of Syrian displaced. I like to call them displaced because I have and they have a hope to return to Syria soon, adding to 500,000 Palestinian refugees who have been in our country for 60 years, also hoping for a hypothetical return. I want you to consider what kind of stress this imposes on infrastructure, employment, demographic balance, etc. And again, to put this into perspective, this would mean that for every 3 persons living in Lebanon, 1 is a refugee. If we were in Portugal, Portugal is a country of 10 million. Just imagine that on a short notice, you add 5 million refugees in Portugal. Try to survive this. Surprisingly, some countries, neighboring countries, even though they are blessed with considerable petroleum oil resources, have not accepted a single refugee and have not offered any support. Off the record, I would like to ask myself whether we can blame them, because I ask myself whether we as Christians are offering any support to those Christians who are in Palestine And we all know that Palestine has a strong relation with Christianity. We shouldn't forget that.
Joe, you have 3 minutes, okay?
Rush. Doing good in a country like this is challenging because the trend is probably easy to think of your own self and to save your own self. However, we feel that the enterprise is a good solution for this because it's a cross-community environment. In the enterprise, you have people from different communities, different religions, and therefore it creates bonds. We like to say that in Lebanon, in every Christian there is a Muslim, and in every Muslim there is a Christian. Christians, although a minority, are playing a very strong role in society in Lebanon, and here are a number of people who are at the top ranks of the social fabric of Lebanon. And as you see, out of this list, 4 of them are members of our association, EDC. As Christians, we must play a constructive role, and together with you in the West and us in the Middle East, we must play that role. This role should be to design and implement integration models, models that are realistic, that respect differences, and reach beyond those differences based on our common fundamentals and values. As ODC Lebanon, we work to strengthen the Islamo-Christian social fabric, and this is in spite of the defiance, between communities, a defiance that might result from the stress that I described before. We also wish to establish exchanges with other national associations to share our thoughts and implement gestures of solidarity. Initiatives must encourage you, Western citizens, in the name of the respect for differences, not to give in to religious readings that exclude the others. We have heard about this a lot this morning. We must confine all our integration initiatives to the common compatible values of everyone, Christians, Muslims alike. We must affirm strongly that no city, no country, no religion has the right to exclude the other, and we must affirm that no one has the right, in the name of his own belief, to impose on others his vision, to judge, to condemn, to insult, and certainly not to kill. Our joint initiatives must encourage us, the Lebanese, Christians and Muslims alike, in the vision of the Lebanon, the message country, this vision that was coined by His Holiness Pope John Paul II, and to confirm Lebanon as the model of integration, a model for the whole world, and God knows if the whole world is in need of such a model. To conclude, I'd like to say that we're business leaders. We have the economic power as business leaders, each of us at his own scale and level. We have the faith, otherwise we wouldn't be here today. So if we have the will, together we can make this world a most humane place. Thank you.
Terminamos assim da melhor forma a nossa manhã. O almoço será no Hotel Marriott, portanto, as hospedeiras vão indicar o caminho, mas é do outro lado da universidade. E voltamos às 2:15 para começar a sessão às 2:30 em ponto. Muito obrigado. Até já.